What an interesting narrative this game. The New York Rangers play their most complete game of the playoffs, in my opinion. That was the best we've seen from the red, white, and the blue. The Ranger attack was just incredible. I thought Mika Zibanejad was their best player on the ice. However, Andrew Copp did have a 3-point night, and Frank Vatrano was awesome. So there was just greatness all up and down the Ranger lineup. It was a real clinic. The Carolina Hurricanes, I felt, struggled tonight. Antti Raanta ended up getting beat for 4 goals. Freddie Andersen in the stands. The home ice advantage remains in the series, and Carolina has yet to win one on the road. There's a lot of storylines to talk about them, so let's talk about it. Last game, Carolina clearly outplayed the New York Rangers, but Igor Shesterkin wins it for them. This game, it was the Rangers that were in full control, in my opinion, from watching the game. The stat sheet still says Carolina had a good game, but the eye test, I don't think it was ever out of reach for the Rangers. They were definitely the better team tonight. And we talked about this with Vasilevsky in the series against the Panthers, if you're not following that. A good goalie like Shesterkin, like Vasilevsky, these guys aren't designed to win you an entire Stanley Cup. They're designed to steal games on your way to the Stanley Cup. And the win in Game 3 was definitely a steal by Shesterkin. And when you get a steal, it can flip the momentum of a series, and that's what I think we saw today. It ended up building the confidence for the Rangers because they had a swagger all over the ice that I have not yet seen in this playoffs from New York. Andrew Copp, the acquisition from Winnipeg, has been paying off dividends for New York since the trade deadline. He ends up with 3 points tonight. Him, Strome, and Panarin were an excellent number 2 line down the middle there for the New York Rangers. And Kreider, Zibanejad, and Vatrano end up getting put back together. Vatrano finds 2 points tonight. Zibanejad gets a goal tonight. I really thought they were the best line out there, even though Copp ended up getting 3 points. And the reason I end up saying that, it really comes down to Mika Zibanejad. I know before the playoffs I said he wasn't elite. I'm not going to change my mind on it yet. He's growing into that role. The $8.5 million man here had probably the best game I've seen of him in the postseason so far. He had an absolutely cheeky little shift there where he ends up breaking a stick. He goes to the bench. People think he's going to change. He doesn't change. He goes into the bench, gets his own replacement stick because no one's paying attention, gets back out onto the ice and ends up getting a shot on goal. It was quite the sight to see. I've never seen that before in hockey. The other thing that I really noticed about Zibanejad tonight was how much he was driving the play through the middle of the ice, defensively and offensively. Every time I picked up and just really got a moment stuck into my brain into this game, it was Mika Zibanejad. Like, you watch an entire game, you watch with detail, and you sit there and you go, okay, there's a lot of things happening, but Zibanejad for me just stood out massively. So let me know how you feel about that down below. I just thought Zibanejad had an excellent game. Adam Fox with 2 points tonight. He continues to be the best player for the New York Rangers. He forever will be in the short term right now. Fox is their elite number 1 guy. But the nice thing is that you got contribution from the Rangers all over the lineup. You even got contribution from Reeves, who was mixing it up with Deangelo, and that's what you want if you're a Rangers fan. Tony Deangelo, first pairing defenseman for Carolina, absolutely. Go mix it up with Ryan Reeves. That is a benefit and a win for the New York Rangers. Deangelo is going to have to learn to keep his cool about him as he progresses in the NHL. He's a talented player, but he really does have to learn to keep his mouth shut at times. He's got to learn to be smarter at times. You don't want to be mixing it up with a 4th liner like Reeves. Not only is Reeves the tougher of the two, Reeves would absolutely eat him, but Reeves is doing his job. Smart plays here by Ryan Reeves. 4th line players got to be able to take out if they can. I don't mean take out in terms of injure. I mean take out as in get them off their game. If they can get 1st line players off their game and 1st pair guys off their game, they're doing their job. And I thought Reeves did an excellent job with that tonight with Deangelo. I was really hoping that they would mix it up. I didn't think they would. Deangelo wouldn't want that fight in a million years. Great job to Reaver. He does his job. That's exactly why he was brought into this New York Rangers lineup, and I thought the 4th line was pretty good. Interesting that Capo Caco got sent down to that line. Also interesting that Mott got promoted to the 3rd line. So Lafreniere, interesting game. I love talking about him. Ends up running the goalie. Let's go ahead and talk about running the goalie again. Look, you've heard my opinion about this so many times in the playoffs. I don't care if it's incidental. I don't care if it's not incidental. I don't care if you're pushed. The offensive player has to keep control of his body. To me, he is the one that needs to slow down, whether he's going for a puck or not. He's the one that has to keep control of the front of his car, as you would call it. Just like a car accident, if the front of your car hits the back end of another, it's your fault, regardless of what happens. I feel that way about hockey players. He ends up getting a 2-minute. It's not a big deal. It's not a huge hit. Raanta pops back up. He's fine. You've also heard me say it before that goalies' equipment, they're not tanks out there. They're not designed to take body contact. They're designed to stop puck. So goalies are always susceptible to injuries. They're always in unique positions as well too, because they're on their knees, and that can result in injuries and it can flip an entire series. We saw that with Jordan Binnington going out. So I'm not a big fan of when players get to run goalies in any respect. Lafreniere is not a dirty player, but that's not a great play by Lafreniere. Ends up getting 2 minutes for it. Everybody's all right, so we're going to move on, but there are surely a lot of goalies getting run in these playoffs. And I kind of have to lean towards the NHL for causing this because frankly, I don't think they hold players accountable enough for their actions when driving the net. But that's playoff hockey, as they say. That's the way she goes, as the kids will tell you. Rip. Moving forward, great game by the Rangers. The Carolina Hurricanes tonight really couldn't get much going. It felt like they were skating in sand. This was their worst game of the playoffs by far, in my opinion. This was worse than game one. They ended up winning game one. In this game, they were just sloppy. They were sloppy in their own end. They were sloppy in the neutral zone. They were sloppy in the offensive zone. The Aho line, although Teravainen and Aho did contribute the only goal in the game, I didn't think they were very good, to be honest. The Zibanejad line and the New York Rangers ended up eating them for lunch. And what I think's occurring here is the home ice change. Even though I've been pumping up the Jordan Staal line as one of the best third lines in the NHL and the most important line in the Carolina Hurricanes, I may have been underselling it at this point, because when Jordan Staal has home ice advantage and he gets matched up against one of the top lines of the Rangers, it's like 50% of the Rangers' punch is taken away. But when Gerard Gallant gets the home ice change for the Rangers, he gets to control that, and he doesn't have to put out one of his top six against the Staal line, essentially neutralizing the line whose job it is to neutralize somebody. And due to that, his top six really does get to go to work, and they went to work tonight. You saw that. The top six for the Rangers ended up carrying it in a points department. The fourth line doesn't get caught. The third line does their job in terms of not taking dumb penalties, except for the Lafreniere one. Okay, they took a dumb penalty. I'll retract on that one. But the third line, for the most part, does their job. They don't get scored on. It was a good game all around by the Rangers. I thought well played, and they didn't need to lean on Shesterkin as the number one reason to win. He was just a cog in the wheel today, and that's what you want from your goalie. You want your elite goalie to be there, but not to be the sole reason. That means you've played a good, complete team game. But again, I think this comes from the confidence Shesterkin gave them by stealing game 3. You can see the quality of chances the Carolina Hurricanes had tonight. There was only a couple in really high danger positions. Most of them ended up coming from the high point. That's just not what you want to do. That's not how you're going to beat Shesterkin. You're not going to beat him from out here. In order to beat guys like Shesterkin and Vasilevsky, you have to get in tight into the low slot. You have to make passes across the Royal Road. Carolina never really did that tonight. At no point in time did I ever think the New York Rangers were threatened. And when you have a goalie as good as Shesterkin and team defense as good as the Rangers, that's just not going to cut it. So it felt like the Carolina offense was a little bit sleepy. Conversely, though, when you move over to New York, a lot of their damage and all of their damage was done in low. So Raanta didn't have a bad game. It's just at the end of the day, the Rangers played better. The Rangers played better offensively, and they were able to generate some really nice chances around here. Yes, they got one on the power play, but what really impressed me tonight about the Rangers was the fact that they relied on their strong 5-on-5 play. It hasn't notoriously been strong either in the playoffs or in the regular season, but tonight their 5-on-5 play was the better of the two teams, and that will carry them far in the playoffs. Assuming they can keep it up, that is. I mean, it is just one game. Before we head over to our goal breakdown, go ahead, give Coach Ryan D a big thumbs up. Join us if you haven't yet, Carolina and Ranger fans. Come join our Discord. We've grown to over 200 members now. Would love to talk to you during the game. We're a very active group in there. Great group of guys. Shout out to the Discord chat there. And think about joining our members page. We're growing all the time. So the coaching staff is growing. You can progress your way from trainer all the way to head coach. Heck, even be the boss of Coach Ryan D if you stick on long enough. Work your way up to president and GM like these beauties. So big shout outs to our lower bowl and executive suites team here. Keep growing. We want to be able to fill up this page to the point where it is just a scrolling line of credits. And if membership isn't your thing, not a big deal. A thumbs up, a subscribe always goes the furthest way. Or if you want to leave a tip for Coach Ryan D, a super thanks down below is always appreciated. Suicide pass here to start the game. Domi ends up getting blown up by Jacob Trouba. Look, Domi's a tough kid, but Jacob Trouba's an absolute monster as you move down the ice there. You can see him just get absolutely wrecked at the red line there. It's a monster hit. Lorentz steps in to fight for him, and it's not that Domi needs somebody to fight for him. Trust me, he is as tough as his dad is. but yeah, I'm sure he was seeing a couple little birdies around his head after that hit at that point. So Laurent stepping in, doing what a good teammate would do. He ends up taking the instigator for fighting. And for those of you who may be new to hockey, this is what we call a suicide pass. When the puck ends up moving up the wall and a player is unable to see the freight train that's coming his way, they end up getting blown up at center ice or somewhere in the neutral zone. It's always an open ice hit. So to be a sui or a suicide pass, it's got to be something at open ice. And these are just vicious hits because it's two players going at top speed, maybe up to 30 kilometers an hour, and they hit each other. And when they hit each other, what you end up seeing here is just an absolute explosion. Boom. Now, does he end up hitting the head? I don't know. You let me know down below. I apparently was completely wrong when I said Trouba ended up hitting Crosby in the head, and the league fully agreed. So Trouba's got a bit of an MO for big hits. By the rules in the rule book, Domi actually has to play and touch that puck. So Domi touches the puck just right there. You saw it, so that makes him active. And because he touched the puck, Trouba's allowed to go. But the first thing I see snapping back there is Domi's head. Now, you might ask, Ryan, why do you think this is a clean hit? There's a little bit of a different angle that we should look at as well, too. One thing that will get pointed out by the Department of Player Safety of whether or not they want to or not review this is always intent. So unfortunately, Domi is actually falling at this point in time on this angle. So they look at this and say, is it up to Trouba, who's already decided to engage in the hit? So his hand is actually much lower in this area. His feet look like he is more on the ice. It's definitely a better angle to take a look at it there. Player safety will see all those angles. They'll still make the decision either way. But to be fair to the call that I made, I don't think it's, well, it wasn't a penalty on the ice. I don't think it's going to be suspended. And it's just a big time hit in the playoffs. And as you go a couple frames forward now, you can see it pretty clear. It's the contact that ends up launching Jacob Trouba over. So when he makes initial contact, his feet are on the ice, but you know, there's not much you can do after a freight train ends up hitting it. So he ends up coming up after. I believe you can see that's a nasty hit to Domi. Insult to injury, New York's going to take advantage of it. Remember I said Adam Fox never makes a pass with his feet standing still? Take a look at that. He gets the puck. He could have moved this over to his feet standing still. Most players would have done it. He doesn't. He moves his feet even just the littlest amount, changes his angle, pivots, gets moving, leaves beautiful sauce over here to Andrew Copp. Andrew Copp doesn't miss here. So this goes across the Royal Road once. We've talked about it. Copp ends up seeing Vatrano at the back door. And unfortunately, because of the pressure that Carolina ended up having at the top, Copp has a beautiful angle over here to Vatrano. And we talked about this as well too. The T intersection, it's right here. It's basically an intersection at the top of the circles in the middle of the ice. Nobody was in it. Yes, your one player is away trying to make a check, but somebody has to get into that T intersection. Carolina doesn't do it. And you got to be in there because Andrew Copp and other players are going to be able to exploit it. So definitely an ability to get in there. And you can see he's in there right now. He's there. It's where he is, but then he ends up actually taking what I would consider a bad angle. He goes a little bit too high, should have stayed lower, ends up getting his stick in the right place, but Copp exploits. Raanta, there's nothing he's going to do about this one. He has to push 180 degrees across his crease. That's why the Royal Road, the invisible line down the ice, is so deadly. Really nice goal to open up the game by Vatrano. The Fox goal is just an absolute quagmire of events. Take a look at this. Stick snaps, hilarious. It happens at the worst possible time. They go to block it, and because Carolina goes to block it, they're actually ending up to making a beautiful kick pass. Awesome soccer play down into the corner. They have to go end up changing it, and then what you see is that everybody gets clustered because of the kick. The defenders are out of position. The offense is out of position. So when this happens, just rely on skill to win out at all times. And what you end up seeing is Adam Fox going hard towards the net. You got to love the mentality of a goal scorer. A defender going hard towards the net is awesome. You wouldn't have seen this when your dad was watching hockey. I love the fact that he's like, why stay over here on the blue line when I can push forward to get a goal? That's why I always say Fox has an offensive mentality as a defender. He is all gas all day. So Fox gets himself in front of the net, and then it's just a beauty little tip there. You'd think the guy was playing center or wing for the Rangers. Really nice job. Way to go, New York, on that goal. The Canes get caught with New York behind them. And this is what I mean. I think New York was so much faster in the neutral zone today. When I said this is the best game New York played, it's because they weren't clustered up in the neutral zone. They were able to actually get through that Carolina defense. And you'll see Zibanejad here make a big drop pass. The first thing that he does is he shoulder checks. That's key. We always got to look for a shoulder check. If you're not shoulder checking, you're doing it wrong. Because how many times have we seen a drop pass in the playoffs with no shoulder check that ends up going the other way and into the back of your net? Now, again, on offense, you got to let the boys get a little bit creative, but somebody needs to drive the mid lane here. Doesn't end up happening. You end up actually having two players go wide. It works out, but it would have worked out regardless if you drive the mid lane. Driving the mid lane pushes defenders back. So you'll see Zibanejad go wide here. And what you see right here is by Zibanejad going wide, it actually allows the defender to make a quick little step up here and give less room to the Rangers. If Mika Zibanejad would have driven the net, what you would have been able to see is instead of making a shot or a pass from here, they would have been able to carry it in likely to the high slot and made a shot with a screen in front. That's a higher percentage scoring chance. This one ends up going in because of a little bit of leakiness by Raanta. So both players get behind him. This technically, unless it wasn't this good of a shot, I mean, it was a very good shot, but most of those shots end up getting saved by the goalie at that point in time. It sneaks behind him. Zibanejad puts it in, so he goes to the net hard. However, like I said, higher percentage scoring chance. If they want to drive the middle, you end up with a screen. You end up with a shot from the low slot or the mid slot instead of the high slot. So wide, nah. I would have cut inside. I would have cut inside and sent two. You could have had a double screen in front. There's definitely ways to do it. But on offense, it's not hard and fast rules. On defense and hockey team, the coach owns you. When the coach says this is what we're doing, this is what you're doing. You don't divulge from the plan. There's no creativity on defense. On offense, though, you get tactics. And what I'm talking about there with mid lane drive is a tactic. You can choose to use it or not to use it, but offense is all about read and react and using your skills. So when you got a player like Zibanejad who makes $8.5 million a year, not for the fun of it, he's worth it. So when you have a guy like Zibanejad make the decision to go one way instead of the other way, I'm not telling you guys on this video to say Zibanejad did wrong. He did good. He scored. I'm just telling you what the most likely way to go that a video coach in the NHL would be breaking this down to his team. He'd probably be saying the same things I am. Hey, it worked out for you. But if you want a better chance to score even more goals, because it's awesome you scored this one, if you make this play over the course of your career and our team, you're going to score more goals using this tactic than not. That's all they're going to say. But at the end of the day, it's a read and react play. Zibanejad reads and react and he gets in there. So there you go. Lots of storylines here, but the big takeaway, Carolina looks like they're skating in stand. We hope Domi is okay. I thought that hit looked a little high. You look at it a second way, it looks pretty clean. Domi's falling. Intent matters in the NHL. Should it or shouldn't it? Not here to dispute that at all, but Trouba keeps his arm tucked in. He's low. I don't think there'll be a suspension, but it was worth looking at. We always have a fun time getting the comments riled up with stuff like that. Zibanejad, I thought, was the best player on the ice for the forwards for the Rangers. Adam Fox is just an offensive powerhouse. He's the best player for the Rangers. Love the fact that he's driving the net. And the last thing to talk about, I think, is Raanta or Freddie Andersen. Freddie Andersen started practicing. I don't think they're going to take Raanta out of the game until he loses. He ended up losing tonight. It wasn't a great game for Carolina. They might be looking for a spark at home. So we'll have to wait and see what brind'amour ends up doing. But I think it's 50-50 or maybe even 60-40 that Freddie Andersen may play next game in place of Raanta. Let's end up seeing, I think, the next game that goes home to Carolina, even though New York did great in this game, I think Carolina is going to take it. And what has me saying that is that Staal line is going to get the line matching. It's going to shut down the Zibanejad line. That's going to leave you with Strome, Copp, and Panarin as the singular line to score, because so far the Staal line's given me no reason to think they can't shut them down. They've shut everybody down in the playoffs so far. So if you can't score from the Copp, Strome, and Panarin line and from your third line, the Lafreniere line, well, then I think Carolina ends up winning it. So we'll have to see when we go home. We'll check on Freddie Andersen. I think the home ice advantage is going to matter. But if New York steals it at home, I think it's done. If New York steals this on the road, I mean to say, if they steal it on the road, I think it's done. But you can never count your chickens before they hatch. So subscribe, join, thumbs up for us. We'll catch you guys in the next one.